Rolling take one. Hello, my name is Ray Salazar, and this is Morning Reel, a 3 minute or 600 minute or so podcast of films that I review of all kinds, of all places, underground or on the mainstream. I want to give a shout out to Jean Luc Godard. He passed away on September 13th. It is shocking to the world of cinema. This guy was basically the Quentin Tarantino of his time. But the difference between him and Tarantino is that this guy never stopped making movies. Never. Until the day he died, you know, the guy made movies. So shout out to Godard. I love his films. He is an influence of mine, I would say, in the way I do camera work and the way I put certain edits together. Believe it or not, he's been in our homes. Anyway, I am excited to review this film, Jaws. Da-da, 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 da-da. Such an iconic film, iconic score, iconic everything. This film was directed by Steven Spielberg, who's one of my favorite directors of all time. This film came out in 1975. This film is an American thriller, but in a way, it's sort of like an adventure film because it's three men who go out to sea trying to bag up the gray white that's been killing the folks of Amity Island, which also stands for friendship. Haha. This film was a box office blockbuster. In fact, it's one of the first films that got to, I guess, coin the term blockbuster. If it wasn't for this film, we wouldn't have the store that was named Blockbuster for a time. Remember Blockbuster? Screenplay by Peter Benchley. It's adapted from a book. Yeah, that came out in 1974. Imagine that, a year before, by Peter Benchley. Crazy. Good on him. Who also wrote the screenplay with him is Carl Gottlieb. Either way. Starring Roy Scheider, Robert Shaw, Richard Dreyfuss, Lorraine Gary, and Murray Hamilton. Cinematography. This I love this film because of its cinematography. Bill Butler. Music by John Williams. Obviously, Universal Pictures is the production company that distributed this film. There's so much to say about this film as far as its influence, its impact in cinema and in entertainment. It's a very suspenseful film. Um, some say, in a sense, it's a horror film because you see people die. One of the crazy shots in the film is primarily the first scene where the woman swims into the ocean and the shark just drags her, to the bottom, well, under the surface, right? But it looks so dope the way the woman screams, right? She's screaming her for her life. And you can't see the shark. You can't see what's dragging her. And it's crazy because we know it's a shark, but if you were to look at it from a different perspective, one would say it's a monster, of some kind. And I mean, sometimes you could say that sharks are monsters, especially of the sea, because you don't know when they strike. Can't really see them unless you know, swim underwater and all that crap. But anyways, the, she's screaming, she's screaming until she's under the surface of that water, and it's a pretty dope shot because there's no bubbles. It's just like look, she just gets sucked into the water, dude. It's great, and it's quiet. Nothing happens after that. It's just quiet. You just hear the ocean sounds. You just hear environmental sound effects, and it's great. This film has great writing, great dialogue between characters. It's very snappy. It's very alive. It's funny at times too. I like the kin the I like the interactions between Quint, Brody, and Hooper. All great, each and in their own way. Their backstories are pretty cool. It's funny because there's no flashbacks in this film. Everything is going forward. So the way you hear about these characters' backstories is how they basically talk to each other. They get close, they somewhat become friends, but they're definitely partners, and things are revealed. And it's interesting. Some of it is kind of scary, especially Quint's background, where he was in the USS Indianapolis, and the ship got bombed, torpedoed, swimming in the water with all kinds of men, shark infested waters, and he talks about how he just saw his friends, fellow soldiers, just getting eaten up, seeing them scream for their lives. It's fucked up. I mean, you're listening to it, you're watching it, and you're just trying your best to imagine it. But any kind of imagination, it still sucks at the end of the day. You know, these people got eaten and they didn't deserve it. Much like the other people who got eaten by the Jaws character, you know. It's great. So I saw this film in 3D, which is really good. It looks very crisp, clean. The sound is great. The glasses weren't annoying to have on. I enjoyed it. I mean, it wasn't really crazy 3D action going on, but you can tell it's 3D. You can see the shifts of foreground and background. I dig it. I mean, would I see this film always in 3D? Nah, but it's good to see a film like this in the big screen. And where I saw it, the screen was huge, and I appreciated the fact that I got to see this film, got to relive it, because it's been a while since I've seen this film. I've seen it a couple of times, and I love it. But sometimes you gotta get out of that home, out of the office, and into a theater, and just let it take you. And it took me pretty well. I will give this film an automatic 4 out of 4 tokes because it's just so iconic. There's not one bad line in the film. The plot is very simple, very clear, and there's no unnecessary side stories. It's very direct. That's what I like about this film. It doesn't pussyfoot as far as like what the whole film's about and how the characters change by the end of the film, especially Brody's character who wouldn't even step in a boat. And there you go, swimming in the ocean with Hooper at the end of the film. Quint, he's the character who pretty much has nothing else to live for. I mean, he just much like the shark, he like eats, breathes, sleeps thinking about sharks, hunting sharks, all that stuff. Hooper loves sharks. You know, rich boy, he wants to tackle on this thing alone, but nope, you need a partner. There they go. They do it. I dig it. And he changes. He becomes a bit more humble, especially at the fact that he's hanging around with people who are, you know, locals for one, but who know what it is to work hard for a living, to care about others. And there it goes. I'm Ray Salazar. Follow me on Morning Shot Films and YouTube. Follow this podcast, Morning Reel. Rate and review this episode and this podcast itself. You can encounter this podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeart, YouTube, and Spreaker, where this is the main distribution for this particular podcast itself. Next week, I am not sure what I'm going to do. I've been watching all kinds of stuff. There are requests that I need to attend to, but people have been left and right telling me do this, do that. It's kind of tough, but I love cinema. I always like watching new things. I always like revisiting things that I like, things that I even don't like. Thank you.